Workplace accidents in human history. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. My God. R.I.P. to her spinal cord. Jesus. If she was an inch more under it, she would have been toast. Good God. That's me on my first day.
I was frightened too. Your muscles start to contract, trying to force you to open your mouth to breathe. And you're fighting against that.
Hey guys, Jared here. Getting a new job can feel like a new chapter in your life.
How to survive.
But in some cases, it can also be the last. Whether it's due to a lack of training, improper safety protocols, or a company's negligence, some workplaces are prone to serious accidents. Today we'll be looking at some of the worst workplace accidents in human history. Warning,
tell me about it.
Discretion is strongly advised. And our deepest condolences go out to the family.
Kind of mad that he's like this handsome. Does it piss anyone else off that he's like this handsome? Clearly works out. Beautiful eyes. Luscious hairline. Probably drinks pre-workout. Probably fucks good too. If I brought my chick around this guy, I no longer have a chick. That's the conclusion. I'm upset that this is the guy who's telling me this stuff right now. Can we get somebody else, please? This guy's gonna fuck my girl. I don't have a girl, but...
and friends of the victims featured in today's video. What mistake left 5 divers trapped in an underwater oil pipe?
I've heard about that
one. How did a teen get engulfed in a silo? And why did a bread company's greed cost the lives of 2 employees? The mouse hole. 41-year-old Gordon Moffat, a husband and father of 2, had years of experience working on oil rigs. On October 9th, 2000...
I've actually considered working on oil rigs. I've applied a few times. It's one of the most dangerous jobs, but the pay is so good.
While aboard the Magellan...
You get like $30 an hour, and you work like 12 hours a day for like 7 days a week. And then you get 7 days off or some shit like that. It's awesome.
120 miles east of Aberdeen, Scotland, Moffat was tasked with servicing hydraulic
Yo,
hoses.
Rabbit!
The job itself...
Rabbit, you trying to go work on an oil rig with me?
While aboard the Magellan, 120 miles east of Aberdeen, Scotland, Moffat was tasked with servicing hydraulic hoses. The job itself wasn't too complex, but it did require him to be lifted about 50 feet above the lower deck.
Okay, no, fuck that.
Knowing the potential dangers of the job, from explosions to chemical exposure, harsh weather, and even machine failures, Moffat made sure to strap into his safety harness and take his time. Once the job was complete, Moffat radioed the banksman, who worked as the winch operator's eyes and ears. He told them he was ready to be lifted to clear the hoses before being lowered to the deck. Sadly, communication error led to a horrifying accident. After being lifted a few feet, Moffat told the banksman to stop. The message was relayed to the winch operator, but didn't get through to his radio due to a malfunction.
What is he doing with his
The winch operator continued to lift Moffat toward the mouse hole, a 10-inch round hole through which the safety cable runs. As he was being pulled up, both Moffat and the banksman yelled, "Stop," to no avail. The banksman then ran to the emergency intercom to tell the control room to stop the winch. However, because the emergency intercom is recorded, there was a delay, and by the time the winch was shut off, it was too late. Moffat's body had been pulled through the mouse hole, crushing him to death. But the reality of the situation was much more gruesome. His body was so disfigured that he was hardly recognizable. Doctors referred to it as a virtual transection, meaning his lower abdomen had been torn apart. The company implemented new safety protocols, including mandatory permits for high-risk operations and the presence of supervisors and safety personnel on board during these operations.
My God, dude.
My only survival tip here would be to ensure that all
Imagine my fat ass being pulled through a mouse hole. Oh my God.
Safety protocols are in place before starting a task that you know can be dangerous. Our next workplace accident takes us to another pipeline tragedy.
I've heard about this one.
Which cost the lives of 4 divers. The Pariah diving tragedy. On February 25th, 2022, 5 divers entered the waters off Trinidad and Tobago to repair a leaking U-shaped oil pipeline 60 feet deep and 1,200 feet long. The state-owned pipeline belonging to Pariah Fuel Trading Company connected Berth 5 and Berth 6, which are loading docks where oil tankers receive or discharge fuel. The divers, Christopher Boudrum, Kazim Ali Jr., Yusuf Henry, Rishi Nagasser, and Faisal Kurbin worked for LMCS, which Pariah had contracted to
Are they
repair
just
the
standing
pipe
in
near
the
Berth
water?
6. An 8-foot by 8-foot air-filled chamber enabled divers to work in a dry environment, even though they were 15 feet underwater. Everything was fine until the team removed an inflatable plug used to prevent oil and gas from escaping. What the team didn't know was that the pipe had been drained weeks earlier, leading to a pressure differential. When they removed the inflatable plug, the pipeline acted as a vacuum, quickly sucking up seawater and the divers into the 30-inch diameter pipe. Battered around and dragged 700 feet, all 5 of the injured divers finally came to a stop. At least 2 were suffering from broken bones, low on oxygen, and covered in oil. Nagasser was too injured to move. The other 4 divers managed to link together, forming a human chain, tucking their feet under the person's shoulders in front of them.
I thought you said it was 4 people. Why is there 5?
Who wasn't as severely injured as his colleagues.
Why is there 5 in that time?
As they started making their way up the pipeline, they found 2 oxygen tanks that had been sucked through and shared them. Once they reached the end of an air pocket, Boudrum swam ahead to see how far it was until the pipeline curved, an area
Broken
called
bones,
the elbow.
by the way.
When he got there, he realized the water wasn't high enough for him to get himself out, so he screamed for help. Fortunately, his screams were heard, and 2 divers came down to pull him up. Boudrum told the rescue team his friends were still alive, but badly injured. Volunteer divers were ready to attempt a rescue, but the company in charge stopped them, citing safety concerns.
LMCS stated that it was prevented from conducting such a rescue in the pipeline by Pariah, notwithstanding that LMCS had divers and equipment available to conduct the rescue.
After assessing the situation, the
Look, if
Coast Guard
someone wants to risk their life, let them. To save someone, let them. Like, why? Who are you to say don't do that? Like, who the fuck are you?
decided the rescue mission was too risky, but the volunteer divers
Hello?
attempted to enter the pipe anyway. They were stopped by armed guards who claimed that Pariah had stated that no one else was allowed in. Pariah then decided to try using cameras to see where the men were stuck. At this point, they had been trapped for 9 hours. Despite Pariah telling the families of the men that they were doing everything they could to rescue them,
They weren't.
it was only a matter of time before things would turn grim, and they'd die due to a lack of oxygen. Desperate to be saved, the trapped divers continued to bang on the pipes, alerting any potential rescue divers that they were still alive. Sadly, help was never going to come. A press conference was held 48 hours after the incident, and Pariah announced publicly that the operation had turned into a recovery mission. The 4 divers' bodies were recovered over the next few days.
My God.
With an autopsy revealing one of the men may have lived for up to 39 hours before passing. This is another situation where negligence led to the untimely death of experienced workers. Had the team known that the pipeline was empty, they likely would have approached the task differently. Working in the ocean isn't the only place where accidents like these can happen. Our next story killed more than 100 workers due
God
to,
damn!
you guessed it, negligence. The Val Reefs mining disaster. On May 10th, 1995, miners
Oh my
were
God,
chipping
here we
away
go.
inside
People in
the Val
caves.
Reefs mine in Orkney, South Africa.
Y'all know how I feel about
Known
caves.
for its gold resources,
Gold?
the mine was one of the country's most precious at the time.
You said gold? Maybe I don't hate caves so much after all.
In 1994, it yielded more than 155,000 pounds of the mineral, worth $845 million. With dozens of levels and hundreds of miles of tunnels, this place was like an underground maze. To ensure productivity, the mine had 2-tier elevators, which could transport hundreds of workers at a time.
Nice.
It also had an underground train to move materials and supplies. Around 10:30 p.m.,
How do you get that stuff
104
down there?
miners were riding one of the elevators during a shift change. As they were rising, a 2,400-pound train came barreling down the shaft, landing on top of the elevator and snapping its support cable. Both the packed elevator and train continued to drop over 1,600
That would be the
feet before
scariest.
smashing to the ground. Within seconds, over 100 miners were dead at the bottom of Shaft 2. Describing the horrific scene, James Motlotzi, president of the National Union of Mine Workers, told the press, "Pieces of flesh were scattered all over as a 2-floor mining elevator was crushed into a 1-floor tin box. The imagery of that makes me sick to my stomach. But it gets worse. Due to the extreme heat of the mine, the bodies quickly started to decompose, making some of the victims unrecognizable. Over the course of 2 days, just over half of the bodies were recovered. Following the tragedy, an investigation was launched. It was determined that there were no safety blocks in Shaft 2, which would have prevented the train from entering the wrong tunnel. Evidence also showed that a detaching hook snapped.
Yeah, why is there a fucking railroad that leads? That doesn't even make any sense.
Impact with the train, causing the elevator to plummet. This led the South African Society in Mining Research Council to require detaching hooks to become more sturdy under significant impact and to be able to hold at least 11,000 pounds. It seems those involved in the mine would have been killed instantly by the force.
My God.
But our next victim likely suffered a slower, more painful death.
That's
with
not
rescue workers
phenomenal.
comparing it to being swallowed by quicksand.
A couple different occasions he said, you know, Mom, he's got us going into the silo. He knew it wasn't right, but yet he continued to do it because that's what his job was.
Yeah, that's just
On
like
May 30th,
quicksand, bro.
2011, most Americans were making plans on how they would spend Memorial Day. However, Thomas Osier of Michigan saw it as just another day at work. The 18-year-old high schooler worked on a local farm, and on this particular day...
And like my stream, the kilobytes again. Like it'll go to 0 for some reason. We good? We back? Good? And the kilobytes again. All right, we're back.
was assigned to work inside one of the corn silos at Pine
Yeah, that's
Grove
so
Farm,
dangerous, bro.
a job that is known to come with the risk of being engulfed by the grain.
The reason is because, like, let's say, like, your foot gets stuck in the grain and you slowly start sinking in it because it is like sand. You can't, like, climb out because, like, you're pushing on the sand and your hands are just going in it. It's not like a hard surface. So you're slowly sinking in, like, thick, thick water, basically. And the only way they can save you is if they get you a rope and pull you out. I would imagine maybe that's the best way, because draining it will just suck you through the bottom.
Sadly, that's exactly what happened to Thomas. As he was scraping off corn stuck to the silo walls, the grain underneath him gave way, swallowing him. Patrick Pickfett, who was shoveling corn at the base of the silo, first realized something was wrong when he saw Tommy's iron rod slide out the bottom door. Then came Tommy's cell phone. And finally, Pickfett saw the 18-year-old's leg.
Yeah,
Despite
that will crush you as well. As you're going down, it will crush you in all your bones.
his best efforts, the weight of the corn was too heavy for Pickfett to pull Tommy out. When emergency authorities arrived on scene, they also had trouble pulling Tommy from the silo.
My God.
Finally, after more than 4 hours, they were able to retrieve his body.
That's so sad.
It took a total of 35 emergency personnel and farm workers to do so. The
That's
details
so
of what his
sad, bro.
remains looked like were heartbreaking.
What broke my heart the most was to see it had completely dislodged his jaw. You know, to see his form, you know, his physical form, and his jaw was completely dislodged, and the corn had impacted and packed it so much it was in his lungs. The corn was in his lungs.
That sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. Following Tommy's death, an investigation was launched. The farm's owner, Dave Schwab, was fined $7,000.
That's
After
it?
Schwab posted warning signs and fixed the augers on the silo floor, which helps the corn flow more easily, the fine was cut in half. To survive a situation like this, you'd need to create an air pocket with your hands by covering your mouth while waiting to be rescued.
Yeah, that's what I was
But
going to say.
With the
Like,
sheer
what-
force of the grain pushing up against you, it would be a race against the clock.
I'm stuck. Yeah. At this point, I'm not getting out.
It's amazing, the pressure that's there.
Most
like
farms
quicksand.
make sure their workers wear safety harnesses when entering silos, but for some smaller operations, this isn't always the case. Before we
It should
move
be
on to another
mandatory.
horrible workplace
It
accident,
should be
make sure
mandatory.
to like and subscribe for more life-saving content.
Authorities say 17-year-old Isaiah Beddox
God.
of Copley died yesterday after he was pulled
Not
into
phenomenal.
a commercial wood chipper in North Whitehall.
On August 9th,
Back again with the wood
2022,
chippers.
Isaiah Beddox and a friend were working together at a summer job for a tree cutting company in Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. Beddox was a month away from entering his 4th year at Lehigh Career and Technical Institute.
getting close
for
like that
automotive
is
mechanics.
scary.
Tasked with removing 10 trees from a property, Beddox and his friend got to work. Sadly, Isaiah was pulled into the wood chipper after a piece of his clothing got caught on the machine itself. Within seconds, he suffered significant injuries. According to reports, the incident occurred around 1:35 p.m., and emergency personnel were on site within 10 minutes. After seeing the severity of his injuries, which included an amputated leg, an emergency helicopter was called in. While waiting to be airlifted to the hospital,
That's
Isaiah
the wrong
was
leg,
drifting in and out
but
of
sure.
consciousness. Sadly, he was officially pronounced dead at 2:55 p.m. His death was ruled accidental. Ben Kirkpatrick, one of the EMS workers on the scene, explained, "That was the most gruesome call I've ever run." Surviving an accident with machinery is situational.
I will never go near a wood
you should always
chipper.
turn the machine off immediately. If your hand or foot gets caught, don't try to pull it out because this can do more harm than good, especially if you're bleeding profusely.
What else are you supposed to do?
Call emergency services and, if possible, apply a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. Isaiah's death was an unfortunate tragedy. Our next workplace accident also involves machinery, but this one could have easily been prevented. Baked alive in a bread oven. On May 18th, 1998, 47-year-old David Mays and 44-year-old Ian Erickson, both engineers, were expecting to repair a belt inside a bread oven at the Fresha Bakery's factory in Leicester, England. The grid on the oven's conveyor belt had dislodged and fallen to the bottom. The two men were asked to climb inside.
Is that
and
bitch
reposition.
on?
I think you see where I'm going with this one. When operating, the belt reached 500 degrees and took 17 minutes to pass through the oven. Given the incredible heat, the workers knew they needed to let the oven cool off before entering, and were under the impression it had been off for some time before they crawled in. Sadly, they were wrong. Within 5 minutes, the men were screaming into their walkie-talkies that the oven was too hot. With no way of reversing the conveyor belt, Mays and Erickson were forced to endure agonizing pain being burnt alive while the belt made its way through the oven over the course of 17 minutes.
God.
Erickson was pulled out of the other side of the oven by factory workers and died in front of their eyes. Mays is believed to have passed out and was killed due to 80% burns over his body and multiple fractures since he was caught inside the machinery. The saddest part of all of this is that the men died because the factory's management prioritized profits over the safety of their employees.
Good God.
This was revealed in 2001, when the company and management were taken to court. It was determined that the two men had entered the oven just 2 hours after it was shut off, despite the fact that it would have taken 12 hours for it to cool before it was deemed safe to enter. Using fans to cool the outside of the oven, the men believed it was okay to enter, as the temperature showed 104 degrees.
That's hot as
The company also
fuck!
decided not to remove the oven's side panels to save on the cost, requiring the men to enter through the front of the oven. Our last workplace accident may be the most gruesome of all.
Are you fucking...
The Russian lathe accident. In November 2020, a man working
is this
in a
that
factory metal
metal
in
shit that,
Russia
like, is
died
hot
while
and
operating
snaps?
An industrial lathe. The footage is incredibly disturbing, and we will not be showing it here. I think once you see the animation, you'll understand why. For those unaware, a lathe is a versatile machine used in many industries.
Josh, why are you saying LMFAO when people are dying? This isn't the segment where you LMFAO, buddy.
Its function is to shape materials, including wood, metal, and plastic. It does so by spinning these materials at an incredibly high speed while grinding and pressing them against a cutting tool. The details of what happened in this situation are unclear, but based on video evidence, a worker got too close to the machine and was pulled in. Within seconds, pieces of the man started flying all over the place. By the time another employee was able to activate the emergency shutoff, it was far too late. The victim was completely dismembered, with bone and flesh scattered across the machine and factory floor. Now, we had to tone down the animation a bit, so I'll just let you guys use your imaginations with this one. Unfortunately, I don't have a practical survival tip to offer here, aside from exercising extreme caution when working with such dangerous machinery. If the machine had safety barriers around it, such as fencing, then the chances of this happening would have been significantly reduced. Proper training should also be required to ensure workers know how to operate and respond in the event of an emergency. But even then, it seems like nothing could have been done to save this man. The sad reality of many of these stories is that with proper training and protocols, many of the victims could still be around today. In most of these cases, the companies were sued and the victims' families were compensated, but no amount of money can bring
I was about to say,
back.
like,
That's why it's essential to hold those responsible accountable, in the hope that it can create change.
All right, pretty
and save
boy.
lives. From wearing appropriate clothing to ensuring workers
Right, chat,
are
pretty
aware
boy?
of the dangers prior to starting their jobs, the only thing we could hope for is that these stories provide a stark reminder to employers of how important it is to follow procedure.
All right, buddy. How to survive W. That was a good video. That was crazy. That's scary. Dude, my leg hurts so bad. My whole right side. Yo, if you guys like these kind of videos, obviously, you know the deal. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Okay? What is this one? Watch the worst ride accidents ever recorded?